The gathering storm. The refugee convoy drifted through the endless dark between stars. 12 ships moved in tight formation. Their hulls bore the scorch marks of hasty escapes and desperate repairs. Inside those vessels huddled nearly 40,000 souls. Families, children, elderly, and wounded. All of them fleeing the same nightmare. Captain Voreth stood at the helm of the lead vessel, the Gentle Wind. His 4 eyes scanned the navigation display with growing unease. The Kathrani merchant had spent 60 years crossing the galaxy. He had weathered storms, pirates, and the collapse of 2 trade empires. But nothing had prepared him for this. "How much longer until we reach neutral space?" he asked. His navigator, a young female named Scylla, checked her instruments. 12 hours at current speed, Captain. But our fuel reserves are critical. 3 ships are running on emergency power. Voretha's tentacles curled with worry. The Kathrani were a peaceful species. They had evolved on a gentle world of shallow seas and soft breezes. Their bodies were delicate. Their culture prized art, music, and philosophical debate. They had never developed weapons because they had never needed them. That innocence had cost them everything. The Dominion of Thalcor had arrived at their homeworld 6 months ago. The Thalcori were conquerors. Their empire spanned 200 systems, built on the labor of enslaved populations. They had looked at the Kathrani and seen only resources to be harvested. Voreth had managed to gather these 12 ships. 12 out of thousands. He didn't know how many of his people had survived the invasion. He tried not to think about it. "Captain." Scylla's voice trembled. "I'm detecting energy signatures at the edge of sensor range." Voreth felt his heart sink. "How many?" 15 vessels. Configuration matches Thalcori military craft. She looked up at him with terror in her eyes. "They found us." The bridge fell silent. Around them, the other ships began transmitting panicked messages. Families who had fled across half the galaxy now faced the same fate they had run from. "Should I signal for emergency scatter?" Scylla asked. Voreth shook his head slowly. "They're faster than us. If we scatter, they'll hunt us down one by one. At least together, we might." He couldn't finish the sentence. There was no hope to offer. A soft voice spoke from behind him. "Captain Voreth, may I access your communications array?" Voreth turned. The human woman stood in the bridge doorway. She had booked passage 3 weeks ago, claiming to be a researcher studying Kathrani culture. Dr. Elena Vasquez, her document said. Quiet, polite, asking thoughtful questions about their history and art. "Doctor, this is not a good time. Please return to the passenger section. I understand your concern." She walked forward, and something in her posture had changed. The academic nervousness was gone. In its place was something harder. Something dangerous. "But I need to use your communications. Now." "Doctor, we are about to be captured by the Dominion. Nothing you can say will." "I'm not a doctor." She reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. It projected a holographic seal. An image of Earth surrounded by stars, with military insignia that Voreth didn't recognize. "My name is Commander Elena Vasquez, Earth Naval Intelligence. And you're not going to be captured today." Voreth stared at her. Humans were rare in this region of space. They had only achieved faster-than-light travel a few decades ago. Most species considered them primitive, barely worth noticing. Just another young civilization stumbling into the galaxy. "Commander, with respect, what can one human do against 15 warships?" Vasquez smiled. It wasn't a comforting expression. "I'm not alone." She pressed a sequence on her device and spoke into it. "Nightfall, this is Watcher 9. Package confirmed. Authorization code Omega 77. Execute Protocol Guardian." A calm male voice responded immediately. Acknowledged, Watcher 9. Decloaking in 30 seconds. Recommend all friendly vessels maintain current position. Decloaking? Scylla's voice was confused. What does that mean? 30 seconds later, they found out. Space itself seemed to shimmer 500 meters off the gentle wind's starboard side. Like a heat mirage in reverse. Then reality simply opened. A ship emerged from nothing. It was sleek and angular, painted in dark gray that seemed to drink the starlight. Weapon ports lined its hull in neat rows. It was perhaps half the size of the smallest Thalkori vessel. A human destroyer. The Thalkori fleet had been approaching steadily. Now they slowed. Their communications channels crackled with confused chatter. Voritha's translator struggled to keep up with the overlapping transmissions. Then a single voice cut through the noise. Deep, commanding, and filled with cold amusement. Unknown vessel, this is Warlord Kazveth of the Dominion of Thalkor. You have inserted yourself into Dominion business. Leave now, and we will permit you to live. The human ship's response came immediately. The voice was female, calm, and utterly without fear. Dominion vessels, this is Captain Rodriguez of the Earth Defense Force Destroyer Nightfall. You are attempting to attack civilians under human protection. Power down your weapons and withdraw from this sector. This is your only warning. Kazveth laughed. It was a harsh, barking sound that made Voritha's skin crawl. One ship. You send one ship against 15. Human arrogance is amusing. Attack squadron, destroy that pest. 3 Thalkori destroyers broke formation. They were each 3 times the size of the human vessel, bristling with plasma cannons and missile batteries. They moved with practiced coordination, spreading out to catch the Nightfall in a crossfire. They're going to be destroyed, Vorith whispered. One ship cannot. Watch, Vasquez said quietly. The Nightfall didn't retreat. It didn't even try to evade. Instead, it accelerated directly toward the approaching destroyers. What are they doing? Scylla gasped. That's suicide. The Thalkori weapons opened fire. Plasma bolts and energy beams converged on the small human ship. The Nightfall's shields flared brilliant white, absorbing impact after impact. Any other vessel would have been overwhelmed in seconds. The human ship kept coming. Kept accelerating. Voritha's instruments showed impossible readings. The Nightfall was pulling acceleration that should have killed any crew. 9, 10, 11 gravities of sustained thrust. The Kathrani could barely survive too. How is the crew surviving that? He demanded. Humans evolved on a high-gravity world, Vasquez explained. Her voice was clinical, detached. Our bodies are built to withstand forces that would crush most species. Our pilots train at accelerations that would kill your people. The Nightfall reached weapons range. Its guns fired. Not energy weapons. Not plasma. Something far older and far more terrible. Railgun rounds. Solid projectiles accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The first Thalkori destroyer's shields were designed to disperse energy weapons. They did nothing against kinetic impacts. The rounds punched through the shield envelope like it wasn't there. They tore through armor, decks, and critical systems. The destroyer's reactor containment failed. The explosion was brief and brilliant. Vorith couldn't speak. One shot. One destroyed warship. The second destroyer tried to evade. Its captain had seen what happened to his companion and was desperately attempting to avoid the same fate. But the Nightfall had already anticipated the maneuver. More railgun rounds crossed the void, slamming into the vessel's engine section. The destroyer went dark, tumbling away with atmosphere venting from a dozen breaches. The third destroyer's captain made a different choice. He ran. His ship turned and fled back toward the main Thalkori formation, engines burning at maximum. Target retreating, Captain Rodriguez reported calmly. Shall I pursue? Vasquez shook her head slightly. Negative. Hold position and wait. Wait for what? Voreth asked. Kazvetha's voice filled the communications again. The amusement was gone. In its place was cold fury. You have made a terrible mistake, human. All remaining vessels, form attack formation. We will tear that ship apart and present its wreckage to the Dominion Council. The 12 surviving Thalkori warships began moving. They spread out, forming a sphere around the Nightfall and the refugee convoy. Plasma cannons charged. Missile pods opened. The sheer weight of firepower they represented could have cracked a small moon. Now they're going to die, Scylla whispered. We're all going to die. Vasquez touched her communication device again. Admiral Chen, this is Watcher 9. The Dominion has committed all forces. They're not going to back down. A new voice responded. Male, older, carrying quiet authority. Understood, Commander. All ships, execute protocol revelation. Let them see what they've challenged. Voritha's sensor board went insane. Space began tearing apart in dozens of locations simultaneously. Not one ship. Not two. Across the entire sector, reality rippled and folded as hyperspace windows opened. Ships appeared. Human warships. Destroyers, frigates, cruisers, carriers. Massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest Thalkori vessels. 43 warships, arranged in perfect formation around the enemy fleet. The Dominion had thought they were surrounding one small destroyer. They had surrounded themselves. Dear gods, Voreth breathed. Vasquez stood beside him, watching the tactical display with satisfaction. The Nightfall was never alone, Captain. Third Fleet has been positioned in this sector for 2 weeks, running silent under stealth systems. We knew the Dominion would come for your convoy. We were waiting. But why? Voreth couldn't comprehend it. We are nothing to humanity. We have no resources, no military value. Why would you risk your fleet for refugees? Vasquez turned to face him. Her eyes were hard, but not unkind. Because you needed help. Because your people were running for their lives and no one else would protect them. She paused. Humanity remembers what it means to flee. We remember what it means to need help and find none. We decided a long time ago that we would never let that happen to others. Not if we could stop it. On the communications channel, Admiral Chen's voice rang out across all frequencies. Dominion Fleet, this is Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force 3rd Fleet. You are surrounded. Your weapons cannot match ours. Your ships cannot escape. You have one chance to power down and surrender. If you refuse, we will destroy you. Choose now. Kazvetha's response was a roar of defiance. The Dominion does not surrender to prey species. All ships, attack. Admiral Chen's reply was ice cold. So be it. The human fleet began to move. The Deathworld's answer. The battle began in silence. In the vacuum of space, there was no sound. No roar of engines, no thunder of weapons. Only light and death, moving at speeds the mind could barely process. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Iron Resolve, watching the tactical display with calm eyes. Around him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. No panic. No shouting. Just professionals doing their jobs. All ships, execute Pattern Omega, he ordered. Prioritize weapon systems and engine blocks. Disable, do not destroy unless necessary. I want prisoners. The human fleet responded as one. 43 ships moving in perfect coordination, each one knowing exactly where it needed to be. The Thalkori had been warriors for 3,000 years. They had conquered hundreds of species. They had never encountered anything like this. Warlord Kazveth watched his tactical display with growing disbelief. The human ships were faster than they should be. More maneuverable than their size suggested. And their weapons. Why are our shields failing? He demanded. Those are primitive kinetic weapons. His tactical officer's voice shook. Warlord, the projectiles are traveling at 0.3 light speed. Our shields are designed to disperse energy, not kinetic force. They're punching straight through. Another impact rocked the ship. Kazveth grabbed his command chair as alarms screamed across the bridge. Return fire. All weapons, continuous barrage. The Thalkori fleet unleashed everything they had. Plasma bolts streaked across the void. Energy beams lanced toward human vessels. Missiles spiraled out in swarms. The humans didn't even try to dodge. They simply endured. Captain Vorith watched from the gentle wind, unable to look away. Human ship shields flared under the combined assault. They buckled, they flickered, but they held. And the human vessels kept coming. How are they doing this? Scylla whispered. No species can build ships that strong. Commander Vasquez had moved to stand beside them. We build our ships the same way we build ourselves. To survive things that would kill others. She pointed at the display. Watch the smaller ships. The frigates. Vorith focused on a pair of human frigates engaging a Thalkori cruiser. They weaved through the enemy's point defense fire with impossible grace, executing turns that should have reduced their crews to paste. 12 gravities sustained, Vasquez noted. Our pilots can handle that for extended periods. Thalkori crews would pass out at 6. As if to demonstrate, the frigates launched a coordinated assault. One drew the cruiser's fire while the other swept behind it, railguns targeting the engine section. The cruiser tried to turn, to bring weapons to bear. It was too slow. Its crew was too slow. The human frigate danced around it like a predator toying with dying prey. The cruiser's engines exploded. Across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships used their superior speed and maneuverability to isolate enemy vessels. They disabled weapons, crippled engines, and left the Thalkori drifting helplessly. But Kazveth wasn't finished. Boarding parties, he growled. Launch all boarding parties. If we cannot defeat their ships, we will take them from within. Troop transports surged from the Thalkori fleet. Heavy shuttles packed with elite warriors, veterans of dozens of campaigns. They targeted the nearest human frigate, the Dawn's Edge, swarming toward it from multiple angles. Commander, Vorith said urgently, they're boarding the human ship. 50, 60 shuttles. Vasquez nodded, seemingly unconcerned. I see. Shouldn't we warn them? Help them somehow. They don't need our help, Captain. Vasquez's smile was thin. The Thalkori just made a fatal mistake. The boarding shuttles latched onto the Dawn's Edge. Cutting torches blazed. Thalkori warriors poured through the breaches, energy weapons ready. They expected resistance. They expected a fight. They weren't prepared for what they found. The Dawn's Edge maintained Earth-standard atmosphere. 21% oxygen. 28 degrees Celsius. 1.1 standard atmospheres of pressure. For humans, it was comfortable. For Thalkori, it was a death trap. The first warriors through the breach immediately began struggling to breathe. The oxygen-rich air made them dizzy, disoriented. Their combat suits, designed for cold, thin atmospheres, began overheating. Then the humans counterattacked. They came out of the darkness like ghosts. Human marines wearing close combat armor, carrying weapons designed for ship corridors. They moved with terrifying speed and coordination. The Thalkori were larger. Stronger in absolute terms. It didn't matter. The humans had evolved on a world where everything wanted to kill them. Predators with teeth and claws. Diseases that could destroy entire populations. Natural disasters that could level cities. They had survived by being smarter, faster, and more adaptable than anything else on their planet. And they had turned those survival instincts into weapons. Vorith listened to the boarding party communications with growing horror. Screams. Weapons fire. Bodies hitting the floor. Squad 3 is down. All of Squad 3. They're in the walls. They're coming from the. Fall back. Fall back to the. Then silence. The Dawn's Edge reported in to the fleet. Boarding repelled. 47 hostile combatants neutralized. 8 captured alive. Human casualties, 3 wounded, none critical. Kazveth stared at his display. 300 of his best warriors. Gone in minutes. Warlord. His communications officer's voice was hollow. The humans are hailing us. Put them through. Admiral Chen's face appeared on screen. His expression was calm, almost sympathetic. Warlord Kazveth, your fleet is defeated. Your boarding parties have failed. Half your ships are disabled or destroyed. You have nothing left to fight with. He paused. Surrender now, and your surviving crews will be treated according to galactic conventions. Continue fighting, and I will be forced to destroy you completely. Kazvetha's claws dug into his command chair. The shame of it burned in his chest. 3,000 years of Dominion supremacy. 3,000 years of conquest. Ended by a species that had barely left their homeworld. But he was not a fool. He could see the tactical display. He could count his remaining ships. He could do the mathematics of survival. What are your terms? He growled. Power down your weapons. Drop your shields. Prepare to be boarded. Your crews will be held as prisoners of war pending negotiation with your government. Chen's voice hardened slightly. And you will release all slaves currently held in your cargo holds. Immediately. There were slaves aboard Kazvetha's ships. Captured Kathrani being transported back to Dominion space for processing. He had almost forgotten about them. And if I refuse to release them? Then I stop offering terms. Chen leaned forward slightly. I have 43 ships and all the time in the universe, Warlord. You have a dying fleet and nowhere to run. Choose. Kazveth closed his eyes. We surrender. The communications cut off. Around him, his crew began the process of powering down. The great and terrible Dominion fleet went dark and quiet. Hours later, Captain Vorith stood in the Gentle Wind's cargo bay, watching human shuttles ferry rescued Kathrani to medical facilities. Nearly 2,000 of his people, saved from the holds of Dominion ships. Children clinging to parents. Elderly being carried on stretchers. All of them alive because of what the humans had done. Commander Vasquez found him there. Captain, Admiral Chen would like to speak with you. Vorith followed her to a communications station. The Admiral's face appeared, looking tired but satisfied. Captain Vorith. Your convoy is safe. We'll escort you to neutral space and ensure you reach your destination without further incident. Admiral. Vorith struggled to find words. I don't understand. Why? Why did you do this? Your fleet could have been anywhere in the galaxy. Why here? Why us? Chen was quiet for a moment. Do you know what a death world is, Captain? Vorith had heard the term. Planets where conditions were so harsh that intelligent life was considered nearly impossible. Extreme gravity, toxic atmospheres, dangerous wildlife. Worlds that bred survivors. Earth is a death world, Chen continued. We evolved surrounded by predators, parasites, and natural disasters. We learned to fight for every day of survival. We learned that the universe is indifferent to suffering and that the only ones who would protect us were ourselves. He paused, his expression growing distant. But we also learned something else. We learned that survival isn't enough. That a life spent only fighting to live isn't really a life at all. We learned about compassion, about helping those who cannot help themselves. We learned that the strongest thing a Deathworlder can do is choose to protect the weak. The Admiral's eyes focused on Vorith again. Your people are artists and philosophers. You create beautiful things and ask deep questions about the universe. You are everything we fight to protect. Because if we don't, who will? Vorith felt something shift in his chest. Not just gratitude. Something deeper. An understanding of what humanity truly was. The galaxy will hear of this, he said quietly. They will know what you did here today. Good. Chen's smile was fierce. Let them hear. Let them know that the Deathworld fleet stands watch over those who need protection. Let the tyrants and slavers tremble. He leaned back. Because we are coming for all of them. One day at a time. The communication ended. Vorith stood for a long time, looking out at the human fleet holding station around his convoy. Ships of war crewed by people from a world that had tried to kill them every day of their existence. And they had used that terrible strength to save strangers. In the weeks that followed, the story spread across the galaxy. Traders carried it from port to port. Diplomats whispered it in council chambers. News services broadcast it to billions of beings on thousands of worlds. The humans had a fleet. A hidden fleet that could appear anywhere, strike without warning, and defeat forces that outnumbered them many times over. And they used that fleet to protect refugees, to free slaves, to challenge empires. The Dominion of Thalcor requested emergency negotiations with Earth. 3 other slaver nations began quietly releasing their captive populations. Refugee convoys across the galaxy started flying under human protection. And in the dark spaces between stars, more human ships kept silent watch. Waiting. Ready. The galaxy had finally understood what a Deathworld fleet meant. Not destruction. Not conquest. Protection. For everyone who needed it. The humans had found their purpose among the stars. And they would never stop. The end.